Thank you so much, Rasmus. Welcome to this panel discussion on how to support immigrant women in Finland's tech scene. My name is Vibha Deshpande. I'm the Azure go-to-market lead at Microsoft Finland. I've been an immigrant in Finland for the past 13 years, and I think now, after 13 years, it does start to feel like home. So I do think that Finland is now home to me. I'm originally from India, and I'm trying to build bridges, trying to find commonalities, and trying to find a common language that I can speak and make this place a home for the rest of my life. But today I'm joined with two exceptional women, Janina and Valentina, who are going to talk about their own experiences. Valentina is also an immigrant here in Finland, and Janina, you've had an experience being an immigrant in another country. So can you tell us briefly about what has been your journey when it comes to this topic?
Okay.
Janina, if you want to start.
Thanks, Vifan. Super nice to be here, and also welcome the people online. So my name is Janina Luoto, and I'm now leading a company called Islet. I've been leading it for 10 years now, but before that, actually, I lived 10 years abroad. So I've been living in 3 different continents, apart from Europe, and I've been, I would say, immigrant in 2 different countries. So practically Indonesia and Canada. I will probably tell a little bit about that later. So I obviously understand that I'm still very privileged in many ways compared to many other immigrant women, but also I think it has given me a very big, like one of the most valuable assets of seeing world with different eyes because of being immigrant myself. So now when I'm leading company, I'm able to better actually take into account these things because I've been experiencing them myself earlier on. So that's my background. Nice to be here.
Thank you. Valentina.
My name is Valentina. I've worked for Zalando for the past 7 years, and I relocated to work for Zalando from Russia. So I already have been quite a senior engineer when I got here. And now I'm also a mother of a 5-year-old child, which is also a whole different story, I'd say. And when I was invited to the panel, I was thinking how many of us, how many are immigrant women in the tech scene? So I asked from our PNO, and I was quite surprised with the number. It turns out in Zalando, in terms of women in software engineering positions, there are 70% of women with international backgrounds. So quite a big number.
Nice.
So I think that's why it's also interesting and relevant topic for me.
Thank you so much. So as you can see, we have really great panel sitting here with such varied experiences, such experiences in leadership also, to be able to kind of imbibe and bring those experiences that you have into your work and into your organizational culture. So what we thought when we started talking about this panel discussion is to divide it into 2 parts. The first part is going to be able to verbalize the challenges, because I think it's very important to speak about the challenges that immigrants face. I recently read a report which said that of the large cap companies in Finland, only very few that you could count on your fingertips had diversity of nationalities as a part of their DEI plan. So, of course, we have many different pillars. There's the women's and the gleams and the accessibilities, but then there's also this need to support the diverse nationalities that exist. And Finland, of course, has seen this growth in the immigrant population here. So I think it's very important to understand what are the challenges. So Janina, I think we can start with you because you have this very different experience. So I want to know what have been your challenges when you moved away from Finland to another country, and how did that shape your perspective when you came back and now started leading an organization?
Yeah, so maybe I'll start with a little bit of a background. So I finished my studies, and actually just a couple of years later on, I moved to Indonesia as an expatriate. So my worldview was I had been traveling a lot. Don't get me wrong, and I had been living in a family in France, and I had done my exchange studies in Montreal. But despite all that, it's very different to work actually and live and raise kids, even bigger thing. So I would say that I was very much having like a Westerner view when I went to Indonesia. I thought that everyone, thinks the same, and the logic is the same, and sees the world the same, approaches different challenges the same way. And then, I think from this idealistic view, quite fast, I would say in a couple of months, I became like realistic. And then also, I think I started to, through that journey of myself inside me, I started to also value more. That I realized that, there is actually a lot more value that we have different people from different backgrounds coming to the same table and approaching this challenge from different perspectives. So it was a big kind of eye opener for me, and I would actually recommend for any younger persons to go abroad, not just for exchange, because then you work, you hang around with the exchange students a lot. So it's not really the same thing that you are dropped in a country where is nobody with your own background like you're here, Valentina. It's totally different experience. So that was really giving me, like I said in the beginning, it's a big asset for me to open the world in Canada. On the other hand, I kind of, when I came there as an immigrant, I love the fact that actually everyone is equal. Everyone is appreciated as a human being. It doesn't matter which background you have. And that, okay, obviously they have a long history on it, but for example, compared to my roots in Finland, there I saw that the society works better while all the cultures actually flourish at the same time. So when I came back to Finland after this experience, I actually had a little bit of counterculture shock. This was about 15 years ago. I was a little bit actually afraid, for example, downtown Helsinki, because everyone looked the same, wear the same clothes, talked the same, were from same schools. So it was a little bit shocking actually to come back to your own home country and realize that actually there is no diversity practically at all if we look here. So obviously things have changed in 15 years, but it gives a lot of perspective to jump on other person's shoes and then come back to your home country and realize. And that has helped me as a leader a lot, because then I don't still understand the challenges that, for example, Valentina is facing in Finland, because I'm not a foreigner in Finland, but I can at least try to understand better, and I'm aware that these challenges exist in Finland. So it
Absolutely.
Helps. It helps.
Absolutely. And I think in addition to what you said, we also want to build global organizations here in Finland, right? We just don't want to build products that are for Finland. We want to create global products. And it's very important for organizations to understand how these different cultures work. And that's where I think the immigrant communities can, and someone like you who's traveled across, can bring back these learnings and build these brands together.
Yeah.
And Valentina, that brings me to you. You've been in now Finland for how long?
7 years.
7 years. Does it feel like home?
Not yet, and don't even speak Finnish yet. Yeah. So when I moved to Finland, it was the second time when I was in Finland. First time was for interview for Zalando. So how much did I know about Finland? Like close to zero. I knew that most of the people speak English here, so it should be kind of okay to move even not knowing Finnish language, and that is very children friendly country, which was also very encouraging for me. Yes, but then now it's been 7 years, and there were a lot of events happened. And if I think about my personal feeling and my personal struggle in being an immigrant here, well, if I think about Maslow hierarchy of needs, I would start from safety, right? So a few years back, situation got very much different, and I realized that, well, there is no coming back anymore for me. And the sense of base security, can I stay in this country? Can I live in this country? Like, basis for my family to stay here is my employment and my income, more or less. And especially it was surprising for me when my son was born, even though in Finland both parents might have permanent residence permit, their children don't have this right. So you need to still apply and you need to have a basis providing for them. And 2 years later, when you apply again, you still need to have all this basis of income. So in the situation, if you lose your job or both of the parents lose your job, your child will not get this permit and you will have to move back.
Yeah.
So that was hard. And to some degree, that was so hard for me that I went through severe anxiety and panic attacks. And even in the workplace, and thinking about my efficiency at work at the moment, probably not that efficient. But I got a lot of understanding. We have a lot of immigrant people, and I got all the support I needed. I got medical support and psychological support, but it often doesn't come that easily to your mind that people might not be productive because the basis of their needs, is safety, is just not satisfied at the moment. And then comes sense of belonging, which when you move to a new country, you still kind of have friends, but your friendship is deteriorating fast. Being like in your 30s, building new friendship is hard. There is a language barrier exists, so building this community and network of support was again a separate challenge for me. Then also I was surprised in Finland that it is many companies in their hiring policies, they are so much based on referrals. So in my previous background, there is so much need for software engineers, so there is not much reliance on the referrals. But here in Finland, like a lot of people are hired because they know someone.
Yeah.
And as an immigrant, it's so hard to build this network. It's for people who can really recommend you. Interesting, what I realized, I was also a manager for some time in Zalando, and I had also an immigrant woman from Iran. And she was referring people from also, she worked before in a big Iranian company. And we hired 3 of them. And basically, when you diversify, when you have more people from different backgrounds, you just increase your network of referrals as well. So eventually, 3 of 9 people from my team were from Iran through those referrals. So that's also was quite great. Yeah, and of course, my son was born here, and becoming a mom was a way different challenge.
Yes.
I didn't even, I think many of you know that being a parent is hard. Being an immigrant is also not easy. Being an immigrant parent is a combination of both. For example, everyone, like specialists, recommend you always to speak your native language to a child, so to strengthen their first native language, which creates also a bit of an isolation. If you always speak to a child in your native language, then it's hard to meet with other Finnish families because you will be speaking 3 different languages, so you get somewhat isolated to your local communities. And in general, in your country, you just don't know where to go with your kid. I mean, like, what are the events? How do you build all this network to know where to go?
Yeah.
So that's about my experience, like my struggles.
I kind of feel a lot of my story in that. So thank you so much for sharing it and verbalizing it so beautifully. I think, yeah, it's been now 13 years here in Finland for me. And I think initially I went through a lot of quite similar experiences as you when it came to language, for example. And I remember in some of those initial days when I started zoning out because the meetings were happening in Finnish and I started zoning out. So, and then I saw that became like a behavior, that I was just zoning out in meetings and not being attentive in the meetings. And then that kind of started becoming a habit, that because I'm not, this is not what I'm supposed to be part of. And then at one point, I did start talking to my manager and said, you know what, this is what I'm facing. And I was so lucky to have a manager who said, you know what, you can't learn to eat and learn to eat with fork and knife at the same time. So you're learning, you're starting a new role. I think it's important that you understand everything. So just say it as clearly as you can that I don't understand this. Let's switch to English. So that has actually been something that I had to speak up, and I had to kind of overcome that challenge also for myself and with my colleagues. And now I think it's the other challenge because I want to speak more Finnish, and then when I try to speak, and then if I don't remember a word or something, then we switch to English. Now it's difficult to come back to Finnish. So now I'm telling my colleagues, you know what, even if we switch, let's come back. Yeah. So I mean, I completely understand. And like I said, I've gone through the same challenges. And I think it's very important that we verbalize it's not just about the language, it's not just the culture, but it's also about the life choices that you have to make, that your residence is deciding what choice you can make. What can you and what you cannot do. So I think it's very important that we verbalize that challenge. And of course, I understand that there are certain roles where you don't need a native Finnish speaker. You can kind of open that role to multiple nationalities, but it's also important that once you've hired a person, you're also supporting their growth in the organization. So that's, I mean, it's such a multifaceted challenge that we face. So I think we've verbalized the challenge very well. And I think one of the things that we discussed as we were talking about this topic was that we do not want to we don't want to tell any woman what they need to do. We want to talk about what organizations need to do, because we are not in anybody else's shoes. We are, I think Janina, you said very perfectly, we are all quite privileged here. But I think what we want to talk about is what organizations need to do, and then how can we get that sponsorship within the organization to support that. So something that I want to share, for example, for me, when I started working with the women communities here in Finland, I got to know that in Microsoft we have this national transformation plan, and one part of that was to be able to skill women. Skill people in Finland, rather. And we had a very ambitious target that we want to skill Finnish communities and make them AI enabled. And then when I got to know about that, I went to my leadership and I said, you know, if you want to have this target, half of them have to be women. So let's have a separate plan on how we're going to do this with women. So I think it's very important that we are able to pick those, moments and buy that sponsorship. And it was so quick for me to get that sponsorship and get that support. But I understand it's not that easy also. Sometimes it can be challenging. So, Janina, you've been able to now make examples and bring this into your organization. What was it that you did right, or what did it take for you to bring this into Islet's culture?
Yeah, first of all, thanks a lot for the great examples. It's amazing that you're trying to speak Finnish or learn it even, because, I remember I lived in Montreal and everything was done in French, and I mean, that's my first foreign language that I taught in school, and I remember first I was like, oh God, how can I manage still? And then Finnish is totally on the other spectrum from that, So I think actually language is one as a bridge here. So when I bought the company, I'm from my mother together with my brother, I said that our official language is English. I mean, I think still language is really important, because it's exactly what you said. You start to zone out if you don't understand a word, and then also kind of the actionable feeling that you can actually action something is taken away that moment when you don't understand. So that's why that's very important. But I think everything starts from the culture, really, and it's not like that. When you say that we've succeeded, it's a journey. So it's never an end point. So it's a lot about walking the walk. So talking, I would say less, but actually everyday actions. So what we've tried to do is that we acknowledge that it's very important. And I loved your example when you said that, okay, Microsoft has this, target. Let's make sure that 50% of those people that are AI, have AI capabilities or even digital capabilities are women. That's extremely important, actually, and that's exactly what needs to be done. So on those little moments, everyday like actions and decisions, these things have to be taken into account. So then in the long term, actually, you're able to build a company that is flourishing, and it's practically like a driving force for growth, for profitability, for customer satisfaction, for employee satisfaction, for everything. So actually, I loved also that you said that at Zalando, you didn't tell how many of the people of all the engineers are women, but you told that 70% of them are immigrants. So, but I think that first is building the kind of culture that is welcoming and that people feel comfortable in coming the way they are. Yeah. I think that's the first thing. And then I think it's learning together. So also I loved, Valentina, how you kind of told your story. And to me, it appeared, but I'm not sure if it was the case, but it appeared that you've been also quite open at work, to tell that, and you've got support. So I think the first thing is that nobody's going to tell even anything if they don't feel at all included. So there is already, you come closer there. But then, to be honest, it's culture is a big thing, but as big is measure it. So if you don't know where you are, you can say that everything is fine. But then when you look the figures really and dig down on it, and especially diversity, because it's not one figure. It's not female, male. It's not nationality. It's background as a whole, from education, from different nationalities. It's gender. It's work experiences. It's not even work experience. It's actually what the people is interested and motivated on, the free time. These things bring along a lot. So then. At least we have invented different kind of measures actually to measure diversity. It's maybe 5-6 different types that we measure, and I think that's important because, for example, we are a scale-up company and we grow. So it's not that if we were 3 months ago in good stand, then we have recruited many people in between. Suddenly it can be the opposite way. So that's why actually it's very important that you look at those things regularly, and you keep like a very close eye on them along the way. But I mean, measuring is important, but the culture is the number one, from my perspective. Yeah.
Yeah, and one interesting measurement I heard very recently, and I'm trying to actually now advocate for it within my organization, is how do your employees, gender, immigration, all of that kind of groups, feeling on a Sunday evening about the Monday?
Yeah,
like, are they excited to go to work, or are they feeling a little... Yeah. So I mean, I know it's very, very important to measure. So thank you so much for pointing that out. Valentina, how do you feel about organizations supporting? Because it doesn't have to be, because just from my experience, it doesn't have to be a big gesture. So when I came to Finland, one of my colleagues, and this is a story I tell everyone I meet, one of my colleagues took me to all the grocery stores and told me what is what. It just took like that one little gesture that, so that I feel a belonging there. It doesn't have to be something big for an organization to support, for colleagues to come and support,
No, but
folks.
that's actually a big gesture, because when you go to a grocery store in Indonesia, you don't know at all what these food are. Like none of them, like zero. And then also all the flavors and everything is so different. So actually that's a big help.
Exactly.
You learn to eat something that is proper, from your perspective that you like, and you also learn what's the local things that people do. So it's a big thing.
Indeed. In the sense that, what I meant is like a policy change or anything. It just has to be these steps.
Yeah, exactly.
That help me, that memory is so strong for me that when I see another immigrant person, I want to do that.
I love it.
with them. So for you, what do you think organizations need to do, or your colleagues, or what is support for you?
Yeah. So some of the things that I remember when I came, well, first of all, I didn't know what to do in the evening in Moscow. I used to come back at 9 p.m. and in Finland 5, I'm back at home. What am I supposed to do? I have 6 more hours to go before I go to sleep. But then what helped me in the beginning, in Zalando, there were different things were organized after work. Like we have knitting guild. Like we come and we knit together. We have, or at least before COVID, we had a game night where we'd be playing board games, and it helps to build your own community. You don't have to talk about work. It's a company helps you to find this network how to get into the life in here. The other parts, I'm like really excited that people listen. Like it's about empathy. What is important for your employees who don't have Finnish background? Like what's happening in the world, and react to that. React to events that are happening in their home countries. Organize support. For example, psychological support in your native language was quite important for me. Being vocal about that, like stating that we know about what happens, like we understand that you're struggling, even just saying that we are like aware of what's going on. And then like, well, I've been struggling with the Finnish taxation system. I mean, when you come to a different country, there are so many things that feel unfamiliar. And what, for example, was helpful for me, like continuous organized events that recently we had external company come in and explaining us how taxation system in Finland works. Surprisingly enough, for many of the Finns, that wasn't used to. The same happened like when there were changes in the immigration system. Of course, we also had external company come in and explaining how it affects us, what we can do, how we can deal with different situations. So in general, I feel that I am thought about. And I think it's a very important feeling that, and I have a luxury that I've worked for a big international company, and if something happens, it affects all the land offices all across the Europe. So there are a lot of also global efforts of support. But in general, I feel like if something happens, I will get this support. My company will not just throw me away and say, well, you deal with it. They know what's going on and they take responsibility for supporting me. And that's actually a great feeling.
Indeed,
Yeah.
indeed. So it's a lot about like that, having that emotional support and having that trust. Exactly. Like very well put. Yeah, I cannot agree more. Yeah. Having that support, having that, come to me and I'm there for you kind of a feeling. It has been so important for me. And I think it's so much important for organizations to create that support system for all of the diverse groups, including the immigrant groups. I think we've covered the challenges, we've covered what organizations need to do, but I think we also need to kind of talk a little bit about our journeys and what have we learned and what has worked and maybe what has not worked. So for me, for example, when I was trying to grow, because I've been the privileged person who came to Finland with a job. I know there's a lot of immigrant population, especially within the women immigrant populations, who are coming as trailing spouses, whereas probably the male spouse has a role, has a job, but then kind of the woman is trailing and then having to deal with the language challenges and the kind of the employment challenges. So it's all the challenges, exactly, becoming like the only caretaker. In many cases. So I have been, like I said, privileged, but then in my case, it was about growing. And then what worked for me and what I realized is that a lot of times it's important to be visible and to kind of make that equation for someone who's going to help you grow, to find a sponsor, to find a mentor, to tell the mentor things as they are. To be honest with your mentor and to, I remember very recently when I kind of changed my roles and I was very hesitant about applying for the role. And I said to my mentor that, I'm looking at the people who are doing the role and I'm like, I'm not sure if I can do this. And they're like, and I remember this advice so well that they said, don't look at the person, look at the role. That, how would you do it? How would you do it differently? So I think having a mentor has worked so well for me in the growth. So what has worked for you, Valentina, in Finland? And what has not worked? So both ways.
So maybe what worked for me, well, in Finland, people tend to have long vacation, right? And I didn't think that long vacation make much sense. Never had more than 1 or 2 weeks of leave. But then when I actually had to deal with anxiety and burnout, 2 years ago, I took 3 months off. I took prolonged unpaid leave. That wasn't easy to plan. It wasn't easy to plan financially, but we did, and it really worked great for me. I came back to work refreshed, and my creativity and curiosity finally came back after a long break. I agreed with my lead that I can do 2 months break, summer break every year, at least until my son goes to school. And that worked quite well for me. For Finnish, learning Finnish, that didn't work as well. I mean, I was optimistic. I thought it's easy. I will nail it. I nailed so much in my life. I didn't nail it. I mean, I failed so many times, more than I can count. And it was challenging that I work more with German colleagues, and learning Finnish is not really priority for my work. And having courses that are in the middle of the day that always have been someone put meeting in this spot, and no one cares that I want to learn Finnish because we have, I don't know, some important meeting with our directors. So I ended up studying Finnish with tutor. So not giving up and trying different approaches and finding the right way to learn the language. One curious thing, like if we talk about navigating bias, for me, I came from much more biased and sexist country, but it was much more open. Like some people will tell me, well, women supposed to stay at home and cook dinner, but that it's like an enemy you're fighting. And here, originally, I thought there is no bias, everyone's fair, but I realized bias exists everywhere. It's just not visible here. So
it's very subtle
classes
and
are just different.
Yeah.
so bias exists. It's much less, I think, in my personal opinion, but it exists, and it's enemy you don't see you fighting.
Yeah.
So, for example, navigating bias is still kind of an open question. How do you identify it? And I think measuring is the key to that.
Yeah.
What you mentioned.
Absolutely. Absolutely. What will work for women as a leader?
Yeah, I'm just thinking of what you said, and kind of, I think it's very important from the leadership perspective. What I feel that my, let's say, struggle is actually that I have this international background and integrating really into like a communities where is no Westerners, and so kind of getting this worldview. But then now living 15 years in Finland, actually you don't start, you think that you are still having this open worldview, but actually it's affecting you that you live in quite a homogeneous country with certain setup, with the biases, and and actually that's something that stops me very often, thinking that, okay, do I just think that I see these things true, or am I biased actually? And I think I am a lot more biased now than what I was 15 years ago. And I think in general, no matter if you have lived abroad or worked abroad, I think for leaders it's very important to understand those biases, because otherwise you cannot address the things that happens in the teams and with different people. Another thing is that in the end, yes, you lead companies, but you lead individual persons. So keeping flexibility, empathy, understanding, even if you cannot relate to it, or you don't understand it comes from religion or background or whatever, and it might feel and you see it like as a nonsense to you because you don't have a background there. Still, trying to understand and support is very important. So that's actually one of my first learnings in Indonesia, and it's something that we should remember, that people are in the end individuals, and we should look with their eyes. You don't have the same eyes with Valentina and me, and the opposite way. So that's important.
Yeah,
from leaders.
And you don't have to convince everybody. Not everyone will get it.
To be honest, that's one of the that's more like in Canada. I realized that some people you just can't drag along. So the mentor thing, I agree, but also in building networks, friends. Just if somebody doesn't get it, just leave if you can, and then concentrate on those people who can get it.
Indeed. That having these networks and trusted people around you is so important. Thank you so much, both of you, for joining this panel discussion. We tried to, as we said, verbalize the challenges. Talk about how organizations can support and how probably some of us can find that sponsorship. I really hope that this panel discussion has been insightful and kind of thought-provoking in some way for all of you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.